Since ancient times, legends have told us of lost civilizations, about places where kingdoms flourished, where magnificent enigmatic cities once stood. Today we will talk about the most interesting ones. We'll look at those that may have one foot in reality and the other in legend, through nations used for political or ethnic narratives, and those told with the purpose of keeping us awake at night with the horror. Welcome to the Iceberg of Mythical and Forbidden Civilizations. According to legends from ancient times, Alba was a majestic land, wrapped in ancient myths and ancestral magic. Dense forests guarded druids, spirits, and mysterious creatures. Green hills hid enchanted fortresses and lakes that reflected silver moons. Dragons, fairies, and heroes crossed shining paths. In later folkloric reinterpretations of prehistoric Celtic traditions, the land appears as a sacred space, full of portals to other worlds, enchanted mountains, and fluid energies, since Alba is the mythical and poetic name of ancient Scotland. Medieval storytellers linked Albion, which was later generalized to all of Great Britain, to Trojan lineages and legendary kings, establishing an epic genealogy to give a mythical explanation to the origin of the island. Thus, Alba functions both as a mythical geographical term and as a profound symbol of cultural identity and also ancient tradition. And yes, today I have a different costume. I am dressed as, Hercules? And you might tell me, but Jan, Hercules didn't dress like that. And how can you know that? Have you ever seen him? The Garden of the Hesperides is one of the most mysterious places in Greek mythology. Located at the ends of the world beyond the ocean, it was a paradise guarded by nymphs, the Hesperides, and by the immortal dragon Ladon. There grew the tree of the golden apples, a gift from Gaia to Hera, fruits that granted longevity or immortality. One of the most famous labors of Heracles, Hercules in the Latin translation, consists precisely in stealing these apples, which makes the garden a symbol of forbidden knowledge and defiance of divine order. This could be part of the reason why later translations of the Bible, specifically the Latin one, changed the name of the fruit of knowledge and called it an apple, instead of simply fruit, because apple in Latin is malum, which sounds very similar to malum, evil in Latin. But the apples of ancient Mesopotamia and most of the Middle East were sour. The fruit may have been a pomegranate, a fig, or a grape, linked to wine and knowledge. You know, that friend of yours whose best ideas only come as a result of alcoholism. But anyway, about the garden, ancient sources place it in remote regions, perhaps in Northwest Africa or even the Canary Islands. El Dorado is a dazzling kingdom where everything shines with golden light. Its buildings gleam like the sun and its streets are covered with golden dust. At the center rises a magnificent palace, with radiant columns and fountains that flow like molten metal. Gems of every color adorn those temples and lush gardens. Unlimited wealth and extravagance reign there, a hidden paradise full of beauty, power, and incomparable wonders. El Dorado is one of the most emblematic myths of European exploration in South America. Originally it referred to a Muisca chieftain who covered himself in gold dust during ceremonies in Lake Guatavita, a ritual that deeply impressed the Spanish conquistadors. But over time the idea was either misinterpreted or intentionally distorted, from a chief covered in gold to a golden city. But up to an extent, the myth of El Dorado seems to have been an exaggeration from the Spanish in South America misinforming their peers in other parts of the empire. In contemporary culture, it is associated with the search of fortune, but also with the illusions that lead to ruin. Camelot is a splendid castle of lofty towers and gleaming walls, surrounded by green meadows and shining rivers. Its halls echo with banquets and the songs of knights. Fragrant gardens and crystal fountains adorn its majestic courtyards, and at its center, a throne of honor welcomes a just and brave king, King Arthur himself. Knights of unbreakable nobility defend these walls, while legends and promises of justice and glory float eternally. over Camelot. The stories of Camelot tell of the passions of Guinevere, the betrayal of Mordred, the quest for the Holy Grail, and the final fall of the kingdom. As you might already know, Camelot is the most important location in the Arthurian legend, since it is where King Arthur and his knights lived. Although it seems to be more legend than reality, it was probably inspired by medieval regions of southern England, and it is also the nostalgic image of a lost British golden age, undone by human imperfection. The City of Sea rises hidden within the dense jungle, with ancient temples covered in moss and hanging vines. Its silent plazas hold carved stones and forgotten symbols. Rivers of clear water flow between enormous structures, reflecting a sun that barely penetrates the thick canopy. The City of Sea supposedly represented evidence of an ancient advanced civilization that existed before European contact. Its description was based on fragments of Portuguese colonial texts, indigenous accounts, and scattered archaeological references. The name of City of Sea was given by the British explorer Percy Harrison Fawcett, who designated a supposed lost city in the Amazon jungle, particularly in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil. Fawcett undertook several expeditions, culminating in his famous and final venture in 1925 alongside his son Jack and Rayleigh Remo, after which they vanished without a trace. The City of Sea then became a modern myth. Recent archaeological research, such as the discovery of geoglyphs, settlement networks, and pre-Hispanic urbanism, has reinforced the idea that the Amazon did indeed harbor complex societies, although not necessarily matching Fawcett's romantic vision of greatness. In legends of ancient Greece, the Macrobians appear as an almost idealized nation, placed at the edges of Libya by the ocean, beyond the reach of Mediterranean powers. Herodotus recounts that after conquering the kingdom of Egypt in 525 BC, Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, king of Persia and by then also pharaoh of Egypt, sent ambassadors with luxurious gifts to persuade the Macrobian king to submit. But the king replied with a symbolic challenge. He sent them an unstrung bow and said that only when the Persians could string it, then would they have the right to invade his land, showing them his boldness and pride. The accounts add almost utopian details, an abundance of gold, political institutions with a monarch chosen by criteria of physical excellence, and highly elaborate funerary customs. Today, Macrobia is believed to have been inspired by kingdoms in the Horn of Africa, known for their tall stature and economic wealth. The descriptions blend real geography with idealized elements, meaning that Macrobia oscillates between a poorly located historical kingdom and an almost mythical land in the Greek imagination. Trapalanda, or the City of Caesars, is a lost kingdom in the far south, surrounded by mountains and raging rivers. Its streets are filled with gold, silver, and unimaginable treasures. Majestic palaces and broad plazas reflect power and wealth. It is filled with livestock, self-sufficient and protected by thick forests and supernatural forces that make it invisible to those who are not destined to find it. Its legend emerged between the 16th and 18th centuries and described a fabulous city located somewhere undefined between the Andes mountain range, Patagonia, and Tierra del Fuego. According to the legends, its inhabitants were descendants of Spanish shipwreck survivors, lost soldiers, allied indigenous peoples, or even mythical Europeans. The city was described as rich in gold, silver, and cattle, and colonial chronicles recorded multiple failed expeditions to find it, motivated both by economic ambition and by the need to locate Christian enclaves in indigenous territories. For some historians, the myth functioned as a tool to justify exploration and colonial presence in remote regions of South America. According to the myth, 9,000 years before Plato, Atlantis was a majestic island, surrounded by concentric rings of water and land, overflowing with marble temples, fragrant gardens, and perfect canals. The walls of the city shone like polished metal, and its inhabitants lived in near divine harmony, guided by just kings and technology far advanced for their time. It was an ordered, powerful, and beautiful paradise, capable of enduring for eternity, as long as they don't commit a great sin. The myth of Atlantis emerged in the dialogues of Plato, Timaeus, and Critias, where Plato described it as an arrogant nation punished by the gods through a cataclysm. Although created as a moral allegory, many have searched for a real origin or possible inspiration, and these include the eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, in the Aegean Sea, which destroyed much of the Minoan civilization, the submerged city of Helike in Greece, distant memories of seafaring peoples of the Mediterranean, or most likely a mixture of them all. Although some believe it may have been located in the Atlantic, like Plato said, on the Azores Plateau, which they believe could have been sunk around 11,500 years ago, but there's not enough evidence to prove this. Its archaeological search has inspired expeditions, novels, and pseudoscience, turning it into a universal symbol of ruin caused by human arrogance and of nostalgia for a lost golden age. Agartha is described as a legendary underground kingdom, a vast subterranean world connected by tunnels that span the entire planet, inhabited by a civilization advanced both technologically and spiritually. The Agarthians mastered subtle energy, telepathy, hidden knowledge, and a millennia-old science lost to humanity on the surface. Its existence has been recounted in various esoteric traditions and pseudo-scientific theories since the 19th century. And it is often associated with the realm of Shambhala, considered to be its spiritual counterpart. Although its existence lacks evidence, authors such as Saint V. Delvedre popularized the idea of Agartha as a hidden world government, ruled by kings of the world, who discreetly oversee human evolution. A hidden archive of absolute knowledge, and a symbol of what humanity could have been or may yet become. Avalon is described as a misty, eternally fertile place, protected by magic, and regarded as a refuge of ancestral knowledge and healing. After being mortally wounded at the Battle of Camlan, King Arthur was taken to Avalon to rest, or perhaps to await his future return as a messianic king. The island is governed by sorceresses and priestesses, such as Morgana and the Lady of the Lake, who embody a balance of feminine wisdom, nature, and mysticism. Avalon is one of the most important lands in Arthurian legends, and it is perceived as a Christianized version of ancient Celtic myths about the Island of the Apples, a paradise where heroes find eternal rest. In contemporary esotericism, Avalon is described as a place of spiritual transcendence, connection with nature, and return to a mythical origin of sacred power. Its universal function is to act as a liminal space between life and death, between the ordinary world and the magic one. The Eden of Jewish tradition represents the primordial state of perfection in which Adam and Eve lived before the fall. It is a paradise garden provided by God, watered by 4 rivers and abundant with trees of life and knowledge. The expulsion from Eden marks the beginning of human suffering, the need to work, mortality, women's period, yes, seriously, and the quest to return to God. The earliest known iterations of the Pentateuch come from the 2nd century before Christ, and it was probably inspired by ancient Mesopotamian myths that were either 1 or 2 millenniums older, especially the Sumerian paradise such as Dilmun, the Tales of Eridu, and the Garden of the Gods. These places were fertile, protected from evil, sources of pure water, abundant life, and immortality. The Bible reinterpreted these ideas as a perfect garden where humanity began. It has also been assigned a physical location, ranging from Mesopotamia and Bahrain to the Himalayas, influencing countless philosophical, artistic, and literary works as a metaphor for the longing for a perfect world before human error or sin. Shangri-La is a hidden valley among snowy mountains, an eternal refuge where time moves slowly and life flows in perfect balance. Its inhabitants live in peace, surrounded by bright gardens, crystal clear rivers, and serene temples. Ancient wisdom reigns there, free from violence and ambition, where every day seems like a perpetual dawn, a remote, immutable paradise, almost impossible to find. This story is a modern utopia created by James Hilton in his novel Lost Horizon, 1933, inspired by the kingdom of Shambhala from Indic tradition. Over time, the term entered the esoteric and touristic imagination, often becoming confused with the traditional Shambhala, and Shangri-La represents the contemporary yearning for refuge from the chaos of the modern world and a utopia of inner peace. Basically a fantasy version of living with Buddhist monks. Those guys are super chill. Talking about Shambhala, it is a hidden kingdom beyond snowy mountains, a living mandala where compassion and clarity prevail. Its cities shine in eternal light, protected by sages who guard profound knowledge of the universe. In Shambhala, suffering does not exist, a harmony that transcends time. Only those with a pure mind can find this path, a spiritual sanctuary, eternal and inaccessible to the ordinary gaze. The land is one of the most important myths of Tibetan Buddhist literature. Explorers such as Roerich linked it to lost civilizations and connections with Agartha. In the modern imagination, Shambhala is synonymous with spiritual utopia, a state of inner enlightenment, and the ultimate refuge from the darkness of the world. It functions as a metaphor for the perfection humanity can achieve, as well as for hidden knowledge beyond the senses. Lemuria was a lost civilization in the Indian Ocean. The Lemurians were an ancestral, spiritual, gigantic and ethereal race, even predating Atlantis. They possessed profound knowledge of subtle energies, psychic abilities, and forms of life that did not rely entirely on matter. Lemuria was originally a hypothetical continent, proposed by 19th century zoologists to explain the distribution of certain species between Madagascar and India. Although modern science rejected such a theory, the concept was quickly adopted by esoteric currents, transforming it into the cradle of an ancient mythical civilization, like for example in the Theosophy of Helena Blavatsky. These narratives blended mythology, scientific speculation, and spiritual symbolism, creating a myth that still persists in New Age movements. It represents nostalgia for an original, pure and harmonious world, destroyed by geological or cosmic changes. Prester John is a legendary medieval priest-king. His realm was a Christian land surrounded by wonders, rivers of precious stones, fantastic creatures, immeasurable treasures, and a perfect society governed by divine justice. Letters attributed to him circulated throughout Europe, describing invincible armies, supernatural wisdom, and power capable of confronting Islam and uniting Christendom. His existence was believed to be situated in some remote part of the East, India, Central Asia, or later Ethiopia. Although he may reflect the friendship between European and African Christendom or even Middle Eastern Christendom, the figure of Prester John also embodies the medieval fascination with the East and the hope of finding mythical allies in religious and political expansion. The city of East was built below sea level and protected by dikes and magical gates. It was ruled by King Gradlun and described as a splendid metropolis, famed for its wealth, music and decadence. The fall of East occurs when his daughter, the Hood, dominated by evil forces or a demonic lover, depending on the version, opens the gates and allows the ocean to engulf the city. Only King Gradlun manages to escape, guided by a saint like Corentin. East is a legendary city from Breton mythology, that is from northwestern France, not to be confused with Great Britain. Legends claim that on calm days, the bells of the submerged city can be heard underwater, and when the waters are especially clear, the silhouette of its impressive architecture can still be appreciated. Magonia is a celestial realm whose inhabitants traveled in aerial vessels during storms. From there, the Magonians observe the earth and sometimes steal crops or animals, taking them back to their kingdom. Their ships are said to appear among dense clouds, invisible to most, with only certain magicians or sorcerers aware of their secrets. It is a strange world, suspended between sky and storms. Magonia is described in medieval texts such as the Grandined Tonitrues by Agobard of Lyon. The myth combines Christian beliefs, Germanic folklore, and the fascination with the aerial as a supernatural domain. In modern times, Magonia has been linked to UFO theories, interpreted as an ancient account of extraterrestrial visitors. It represents the liminal space between heaven and earth and embodies human suspicion towards phenomena that comes from the sky. High Brasil was a land west of Ireland, described as shrouded in perpetual mist, only becoming visible and accessible one day every 7 years. It was inhabited by an advanced civilization, wise or even mystical beings possessing superior knowledge of medicine, astronomy, and the occult arts. And it was, after all, an earthly paradise full of wealth, lush forests, and extraordinary animals. High Brasil is part of Irish folklore and appears on maps from the 14th to the 18th centuries. The name likely derives from the Old Irish word Brasil, I don't know how to pronounce that, meaning High King of the World, or from Ui Brasil, descendants of Brasil, a powerful medieval Irish clan. And you're probably wondering, and I'll answer, this is completely unrelated to the country Brazil in South America, whose name comes from Pau Brasil, meaning red wood in Tupi-Guarani, a tree highly valued by the Portuguese. High is a common prefix in Irish place names, meaning the island of. Fascination with the island prompted numerous expeditions, particularly during the 15th and 16th centuries. Some navigators of course claimed to have seen its silhouette or even briefly landed, describing a prosperous environment and unknown architecture. In modern times, High Brasil has inspired esoteric theories, psychological interpretations, and even accounts linked to UFO phenomena, of course, where some connected to non-human civilizations or parallel dimensions, feeding the mystique around the legend. In Persian mythology, Turan was the land of the nomadic peoples located beyond the Oxus River, frequently portrayed as enemies of the mythical Iran described in the Shahnameh. It was associated with warlike tribes and cultures considered alien to the Persian idea of a civilized order. In modern literature and esotericism, the term Turan acquired a new meaning, becoming a symbol of lost civilizations, forgotten peoples, and a prehistoric history that is not recognized by mainstream academia. During the 20th century, the notion of Turanism was taken up by nationalist movements in Central Europe and Asia, for example in Hungary and Turkey, which reinterpreted it as a common origin for various Turkic, Mongolic, and in some cases, Ugric Finnic peoples. This ideological appropriation transformed it into a taboo or problematic concept in many cultural contexts, due to its use in exclusionary identity discourses. On the mythical level, however, Turan continues to exist as a liminal space, a frontier between the civilized and the wild, between the known and the lost. Fun fact, there is a Warhammer 40k planet called Turan. Mu is a lost continent proposed by 19th century authors like George Ward, who claimed to have found evidence of an advanced civilization in the Pacific. According to these narratives, Mu was a vast empire destined to fall in a volcanic cataclysm, leaving behind only cultural fragments in places like Polynesia, Mesoamerica, and Asia, a Pacific version of Atlantis basically. The idea lacked scientific support, which you probably imagined, but it was quickly integrated into occultist currents that associated it with lost civilizations. However, within the nationalist movement of Imperial Japan, Mu came to be used as a mythical justification for a superior ancient history, or straight up ethnocultural supremacy. Intellectuals and mystics used it to propose a shared and exalted ancestral origin for Japan and its people, linking the nation to a lost and superior civilization. In this way, it reinforced ethnic identity narratives during a period of Japanese expansionism and highly violent politics, contributing to its perception as a taboo subject for many. Septepi, or the first time, is a key concept in Egyptian mythology, later reinterpreted in the Hellenistic era. It refers to the primordial age when the gods lived on Earth, establishing cosmic order and taught humanity the foundations of civilization, agriculture, law, medicine, astronomy, and sacred rituals. In Renaissance scholarism and modern esotericism, Septepi is reinterpreted as a lost golden age whose wisdom was fragmented into myths and symbols. Some pseudoscientific authors used it to justify theories about advanced prehistoric civilizations, ancient aliens, or hidden knowledge preserved in temples such as those at Giza. Its taboo perception arises from its frequent appropriation by nationalist and supremacist movements, which reinterpret Septepi as the exclusive origin of a supposedly superior ethnic or cultural line, sometimes by Egyptians themselves, or by those who claim that the ancient Egyptians were Europeans, or the opposite, entirely African. But the evidence shows that half of them were roughly African and the other half were Semitic. Hyperborea was a land beyond the north wind, where life was perfect, free from disease and suffering. Its inhabitants, the Hyperboreans, were long-lived, even immortal, and devoted to music and the worship of the god Apollo. It was first described by Pindar, then Hecateuch of Miletus and Herodotus. It was probably inspired by Greek accounts of northern peoples, Scythians, Thracians, or people from unknown boreal regions, idealized as pure societies, blessed by the gods. And of course, in the modern era, the classical myth inspired numerous speculations about a polar origin of ancient civilizations. However, in the 20th century, the term was appropriated by nationalist movements, particularly by the National Socialist esotericism, to assert the existence of a primordial homeland of the Aryan race. Hyperborea remains as an archetype of a northern utopia, but sadly an example of how myths can be distorted for political ends. The Rama Empire appears in some pseudo-historical theories as a supposedly extremely advanced civilization in the Indian subcontinent tens of thousands of years ago. It is credited with flying ships, the Vimana, energy weapons, and sophisticated spirituality. Although partially based on Hindu texts, this esoteric version diverges significantly from the traditional religious concept. Certain Indian nationalist movements have used this myth to assert the country's technological and ancestral superiority, giving it a controversial connotation, although symbolically the esoteric Rama Empire reflects the desire of having a lost ancient civilization. Vrilya is the supposed civilization described in Bulwer Lytton's novel The Coming Race, where an underground people control an energy force called Vril. Although entirely fictional, the work was taken seriously by esoteric and occult circles in the 20th century, who claimed that Vril was a real energy capable of granting almost unlimited power. Some European nationalist movements, especially the ones repeated multiple times in this list, the National Socialists, reinterpreted the idea as a symbol of the inner power of a race, contributing to its inclusion among forbidden concepts. The notion of Vrilya blends science fiction, occultism, and pseudoscience, becoming an archetype of the human desire to access hidden energies, capable of radically transforming civilization. Irian Envaeha is the mythical original homeland of the Iranians in Zoroastrian tradition, described in the Avesta as the purest land created by Ahura Mazda. It is both an ideal geographical space and a spiritual state of order, justice, and light. From there, the first Aryan or Iranian people supposedly spread according to religious tradition. In modern times, the term has been used by certain Iranian nationalist movements and also appropriated by European thinkers Ibis as a symbol of a prestigious ethnic origin, although this distorts its original religious meaning. Iran is quite an example of a perfect, pure, and ordered origin, in contrast to the corrupt worlds arising after the intervention of Angra Mainyu, the evil spirit. In contemporary esotericism, it is reinterpreted as a center of primordial wisdom, comparable to Shambhala or Agartha. Thule, mentioned by Greek geographers as an island at the northernmost edge of the world, has been identified with places such as Iceland, Norway, or Greenland. However, its mythical evolution transformed it into a symbol of a remote and primordial world, full of mysteries and connected to higher spiritual realities. During the 20th century, the Thule society, linked to German nationalism and of course National Socialism, turned the name into an emblem of a supposed ancestral Aryan homeland. This obviously gave Thule a taboo connotation, associating it with extremist ideologies. In its purely mythical dimension though, Thule evokes the ultimate frontier of the world, the boundary between the known and the transcendent, where elusive knowledge will be kept from the rest of humanity. Aratta, yes, Aratta again, is a legendary kingdom appearing in Sumerian poems such as Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta. It is described as an extremely wealthy city-state, famed for its artisans, precious metals, architecture, and general material wealth. In modern esoteric literature, Aratta has been reinterpreted by esotericists and mystics as a lost spiritual origin of humanity, linked to theories of advanced civilizations and hidden knowledge. Some nationalist and racist authors, especially in Europe, adopted it as a symbol of ethnic purity or ancestral lineage, claiming that Aratta was a European people civilized at the same time as Sumer, using it to justify ideas of cultural or racial supremacy, blending Sumerian mythology with contemporary ideological agendas. Its taboo connotation comes from its use to promote alternative ancient history narratives linked to identity and nationalist discourses. Vinland, which you're probably familiar with, the region discovered by the Vikings in North America, acquired a mythical dimension in modern times. Although historically real, it was reinterpreted by Nordic nationalist and supremacist authors and movements as proof of a civilizing destiny prior to widespread European contact. In this exalted reinterpretation, Vinland transforms into a potential empire, a lost colony demonstrating the natural superiority and expansion of Nordic and Germanic peoples. Esoterically, some authors connected with lines of power, portals, or even to other legends, like Hyperborea or Thule. Carcosa, a decadent city on the shores of Lake Halley beneath a dying sun. It floats beyond time, shrouded in a yellow mist that distorts reality. Its towers and obsidian palaces reflect an impossible sky, while echoes of forgotten songs reverberate through its empty corridors. The inhabitants, faceless shadows, murmur secrets of incomprehensible horrors. Carcosa is ruled, or infected, by the entity Hastur, whose cult leads to the doom of the human mind. Carcosa was invented by Ambrose Bierce in 1886 and developed by Robert W. Chambers as one of the first prototypes of cosmic horror. It became associated with the cursed book The King in Yellow. The city stands as one of the most powerful symbols of modern literary horror, a place where art, myth, and madness converge. R'lyeh rises from the ocean with impossible architecture and angles that defy logic. Its colossal black structures seem to move under the changing light of the sun and moon, like it was breathing. Twisted mountains and towers soar above dark waters, while an overwhelming silence fills its submerged plazas. The heavy, strange air conveys a sense of inhuman presence and distorted time. R'lyeh is the prison of Kululu, who lies dormant since forgotten times. Created by pre-human civilizations or cosmic entities, its existence is beyond human comprehension, revealed only occasionally to sensitive sailors or dreamers. As you can probably guess, it was written by H.P. Lovecraft within his Cthulhu mythos. Its appearance in modern literature has profoundly influenced cosmic horror, becoming a universal archetype of the genre and the fear of the unknown. The nameless city, lost in a remote desert, predates humanity and all known civilization. Its labyrinthine corridors and ruined towers are covered in inscriptions and reliefs narrating the history of a forgotten reptilian species, whose eyes seem to follow intruders. Strange echoes resonate among its stones, whispering impossible languages, while fleeting shadows slip through forbidden corners, and every step seems to invoke a dark memory of ancient horrors. Whoever enters feels that the city itself watches, that its silence is unwelcoming, and that living a life is a privilege few achieve. The Nameless City was created by H.P. Lovecraft in 1921 in the story The Nameless City. Inspired by writings on Middle Eastern explorations and a fascination with ancient civilizations, it blends archaeology and cosmic horror, symbolizing the terror of deep history, the possibility that non-human forces ruled the earth long before humans. Akator emerges from the jungle mist, a city forgotten by time, with ruined temples and moss-covered plazas. Its empty streets whisper ancient secrets, and strange shadows move among collapsed columns. The air is dense, charged with an oppressive silence that weighs on the chest. Every stone seems to watch, every sound echoes a dark past, making Akator into a place of ancestral fear. Akator appeared in 20th century accounts of explorers and mystery writers, inspired by South American lost city legends. With no historical basis, it was popularized in adventure and occult books, combining imagination and indigenous rumors into a myth of exploration and terror. The isolated plateau rises above the jungle, a forgotten world where time seems to have stopped. Its cliffs hide dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures lurking among dense vegetation and misty lakes. Ruins of an antediluvian civilization emerge from the undergrowth, with mysterious symbols and crumbling structures. Each step is a challenge, and the echo of ancient rules reminds intruders that nature and the past conspire against them, filling the air with imminent danger. The Lost World was written by Arthur Conan Doyle in 1912, inspired by scientific expeditions and the anecdotes of explorers. It blends adventure, discovery, and the terror of the unknown, popularizing the idea of isolated plateaus and territories where ancient species and civilizations survive. An ancient kingdom remains shrouded in eternal mist, with palaces and temples rising over mysterious hills. Its streets are deserted, and strange symbols cover walls and statues that seem to watch visitors. Echoes of forgotten chants resonate in the fog, while fleeting shadows slip among columns. The ghostly, elusive inhabitants seem to guard forbidden secrets. The oppressive atmosphere and hidden mysteries of Yamatai fill any intruder with fear and anxiety. Yamatai is a historical and legendary kingdom of Japan, mentioned in 3rd century Chinese chronicles such as the Wei Si, reflecting the continental perception of the Japanese of the time. It was recently popularized in modern adventure, mystery, and horror stories, blending history, mythology, and fascination with lost and unknown civilizations. And fun fact, it actually appears on Tomb Raider, cause why not? The moon pool is a hidden abyss on a remote island, sheltering an ancient civilization and indescribable creatures. A supernatural light emanates from the central pool, illuminating underground corridors and stone temples covered in strange symbols. Powerful beings, half human and half monster, lurk in the shadows, watching the intruders. The atmosphere is oppressive, with echoes that seem to whisper forbidden secrets. Every step evokes fear, as if the island itself judges its visitors. The Moon Pool was written by Abraham Merritt and published in 1918, inspired by exploration accounts and ancient civilizations, popularizing pulp literature with supernatural elements and antediluvian creatures. Well, that was the video. There is no conclusion because the video is way too long. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can hype up the video, that actually helps a lot. Or even leave a comment about what you want me to make a video about next time. A long form video, maybe in this same format. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And that's it. It's been a pleasure. As always.
Ciao.